Okay. See if we can get another video down here. Okay. Well, the subject, here again, we have to talk about this. The subject is about that stupid ballroom that Trump decided to spring on everybody. Excuse me. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, come on. He tore up a whole wing to make a ballroom. And it's not his money he's using taxpayer money. And he didn't get full approval from Congress, which prior presidents that's had much work done on the White House. Sorry. Have had to go to Congress and ask if they could do it. I mean, yes, there's been some places in the White House that had to be rebuilt because of the building was breaking apart, so they had to. There was no reason, still, there is no reason, mind you, for him to do that. There is a ballroom that is big enough to have state dinners and everything in it. There was no need to tear up a wall or the building to make it. If he wanted to do a renovation, he should have just redid the ballroom that was there instead of taking up a whole wing. I mean, he could have, made state bedrooms out of that wing if need be. I think they were originally offices and stuff like that. I'm not sure, because I haven't been to the White House to look in there. There's only certain parts the public's allowed to go see, even though the house belongs to the country. But there was no reason to do what he did. The foundation was fine. The reason why in the past certain presidents have had to have, people come in and fix the problems that were going on with the building itself is because the building was deteriorating. It's an over 200-year-old house, So, you got to understand that, you're going to have to refurbish parts of it, but you know what? That doesn't mean tear it up, build a new ballroom that is not needed. We're not that, we're not like in a monarchy, I mean, the palaces in England, and our house is not a palace. It's our house. It's the house for the president to live in while he's in the office. The palaces over there try not to disrupt the outer look because that's how old those houses are. And they're, Tower of London is way older than most countries. It was here before America was even thought about. But back to the White House. Come on, even Jackie Kennedy had to talk to the senators and get permission to do the inside renovation, because at the time of the Kennedy administration, that house was in bad shape. It was really in bad shape. And that's why she had to go, but she still had to go get permission. And a lot of the furnishings she found for that house were originally for that house. she had to, have people help her get this stuff to come back to the White House, because there's a storage. I don't know where it's at in D.C., but it's got all different furniture and everything from the old from the past administrations and stuff that were left there. So like the stuff that came from the 1700s, she had to go out and look for. So, but she still, like I said, had to get permission from Congress to do anything there, because it was a major inside job. I mean, that whole house was in bad shape. Their air conditioning, their heating, that whole thing was all messed up. She had to have it redone. But here comes a billionaire that seems to think that he's a king or something. I don't know if that's what he really thinks, but that's what people are saying he thinks he is. And, tears up a whole wing. That's a whole big piece of a building to tear up for a ballroom. That's not needed, by the way. I mean, like I said, it had already had a ballroom in there. It's also the same, the big dining area can have the table removed, and there you go, there's a ballroom. It's not a necessity for that house to be like that. And he's ruining the whole thing. He's not putting it in, the area that it was in. He's trying to make it worse. That's a historical building. That's in one, I think it's listed with historical sites and stuff like that or something. It's ridiculous. Like I said, it's owned by the American people. Why not put it up to a vote? That's the way things should be. But like I said, he still should have, and I don't think all of Congress agreed with him to have that done. He just had it done. I mean, I'm not, going to pull what I believe about him, blah, blah, blah. This is about basically the White House, which, for everybody who does support him, he's using your tax money to do it. He's not using his own money. You think he would do that? And he's too busy putting golden statues. I don't know if anybody saw that. He's got a statue made of gold on his golf course. I think it's at Mar-a-Lago. But, which it's an ugly eyesore, and the next person that actually, if they ever sell that house, will probably remove it. But, come on. Do you got to do that? I mean, you're a president, not a very good one. What do you need a statue for? Everybody knows what you look like. Everybody knows that's your golf course. I mean, it's just ridiculous. That tax money could have been, used to pay for the, pay more money towards the troops for the, what they have to do. It could have gone to making the roads better. Could have gone to paying police officers and emergency people, and doctors and stuff. No, he had to put all that money into a ballroom that nobody did. How many times are you going to use a ballroom? You're not going to use it every night. I mean, it's no use for it. Ballroom is just to host people from foreign countries. And he's pissing them all off. He's either making them laugh at us or he's pissing them off. Who's going to want to go to that house for a party for him? So, he's building that just to make it look good, and it's not right. I mean, if it needed repainting, or the fixtures need to be fixed or exchanged or updated, fine. But why bust a whole building? I mean, that's whole half of the building. And it's not a small place either. Like I said, there's certain places you can go and see. I mean, like the red room, the blue room, the yellow room, the green room, you know. But there's also places that are privately for the family that are residing there for the term, you know. Tell me I'm wrong. Wouldn't that money have gone to help out the country better? Just when he first started the second term, he sends $40 billion to Argentina. They're a country that can rely on themselves. They've been doing it for a long time. It's just they're into getting you know exchanging their leaders like you wouldn't believe. But hey, that's them. Why do we have to flip the bill? And that 40 billion is not, out of the treasury. It's out of the taxpayers' money that money goes to. Those gold bars in Fort Knox and stuff like that, the president can't touch. He has to get permission, and it has to be a real reason to, do that. That's our reserve right there. There's more than one reserve in the country, guarantee you. They're all over the place. They just don't let you know. I know just because Fort Knox, that's where my one brother was born, was in Kentucky. So that's only one reserve. And like I said, it takes act of Congress to use it when needed. It's not for personal use. That's not his money, by the way. That's the country's money. But it's used. There's a reason why they have it there like that. But come on. He needs to start thinking about how to better this country, not make it his own personal cash cow. That's what he's doing. He's using the taxpayers' money to build that thing that we didn't need. We didn't need that. You got people that, at a beck and call, go and fight for the country. They don't get paid all that much. They're struggling. When I was growing up, and my father was in the military up until I was 15, my mom had to have a job, my dad had to have a backup job that he worked, which was bartending and stuff like that. So, they struggled while my dad was in the military. It wasn't easy, raising 4 kids on soldier's income. And that's why, my mom had to work. Luckily, my 2 older brothers were old enough to babysit, us two, And my parents also took in foster kids when we lived in Washington. They took in 3, not at the same time, but they took in 3. Their names were Joe, Larry, and Wendy. So, they did what they could with what they had. Even though us 2 little kids didn't understand it, my 2 older brothers did. You think they get paid a lot of money. No, they don't. You think, oh, they get free rent and stuff like that. Not when they live off base, they don't. My parents had, because they preferred us to mingle with other people, where we can learn, military life's not just it. There's other ways of life and stuff like that. That's why when we were sent to Germany, my parents decided to live on the off base because that way we could get the culture. So this is my speaking. Money needs to be tax money needs to go into the country, not for a ballroom. That's just my opinion. Personally, I don't think we needed to have a new ballroom built in that house. There was one, and it worked fine up until Trump decided to tear down a halfway. Anyway, you can leave your opinion or not. Just boy, just upsets me because other people work their butts off all their lives, pay into the taxes, and this is what Trump decides to do with it. And don't let him fool you saying he's using his own money. He's not using his own money. Okay. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Maybe I might be able to upload tomorrow. Who knows what the topic will be. So everybody have a good day. And thanks for watching. And subscribe if you want to. And the notification bell's there somewhere. I can't see the other side. Anyway, bye everybody.